I'm super excited to show you kind of my passion, the reason why I think food is so important to health, and basically how we can do this on a daily basis and get nutrition onto our plates.
Yeah. I would love to do it. I'm excited to kind of get our hands dirty in the kitchen, but first I want to kind of set the stage and talk a little bit about how you got to where you are. So you're a big influencer on Instagram, 30,000 plus followers, a lot of engagement. You were telling me that you're being invited to a top culinary school in France to like educate them. So let's rewind the clock like 5 years ago. Talk about how, as a physician, you got really into nutrition.
Sure. So my story kind of starts when I just left med school. I was a junior doctor, and basically I got ill myself. I was working pretty long hours, as I'm sure you're aware, junior doctors in this country and in America as well. Super overworked. And I started getting palpitations, and I was actually diagnosed with paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, which is basically where your heart beats exceptionally fast, around 180 beats per minute, inefficiently and irregularly as well. So I go into these episodes about 2 or 3 times a week, and there wouldn't be a clear trigger. Sometimes it would be stress, sometimes it would be poor sleep, sometimes it would be one glass of wine, for example. And yeah, I went through every single test you can think of, all the blood tests, the physiological tests, the electrophysiology studies. I went to multiple different cardiologists, and I was essentially told that an ablation was my best bet going forward. And for those of you who don't know what an ablation is, it's where a guide wire is passed into your heart, and an area of the heart is burnt using a fine laser or cryotherapy that they do now as well, to stop these excitable cells basically causing this arrhythmia, this irregular heartbeat. So I spoke to a number of different people, and as a medic, I was very, confident in the medical system, and this is the only option. My mum was the one that really convinced me to try lifestyle medicine and try a lifestyle change to see if that had an effect. And the only side effect would be I'd be in a better shape for my procedure, right?
Recover faster or something.
Exactly, yeah. So I spoke to my cardiologist about it, and they were very open-minded. I wasn't at immediate risk. I could take medications in the meantime. So over a 7-8 month period, I focused on my nutrition. I started eating more dark green leafy vegetables. I ate more fats and fiber and whole carbohydrate sources. I'd try and get to bed on time when I wasn't working nights. I'd be trying out meditation, all these different things. And what I found over this period is that unexpectedly, my episodes of atrial fibrillation went from 2 to 3 times a week to 0. Now, retrospectively, it's really hard to figure out exactly what happened. Was I replacing electrolytes that were missing and not shown on blood tests? Was I uber stressed? Did I have cortisol issues, inflammation, etc.? What it kind of reaffirmed for me is the power of lifestyle medicine and the power of nutrition. So essentially what I started doing then is speaking quite candidly and openly to my patients about the importance of nutrition and how actually it is the most important thing that we can do in healthcare today. I started reading the literature, I started reading a lot more about nutrition and just giving general advice to my patients, and I'd be running late in clinic giving out recipe advice and all this kind of stuff. So I just started thinking about a blog, and I just started a blog and a YouTube channel about a year and a half ago called The Doctor's Kitchen, and I basically create recipes and I talk about the clinical research behind the ingredients that I use in an effort to create a positive, engaging and approachable sort of feel around nutrition and how we can actually get this onto our plates on a daily basis. So
brilliant. Yeah, and I think people really resonate with it because it's not too complicated. When I say resonate with it, with the content, with the education, because you're cooking a lot of real food and you're not really dogmatic or orthodox, low carb or high fat and high protein. It's like, look, these are real foods that cultures throughout the world eat, and so we can make it easy, fun. Yeah, you do some great chalkboard stuff. I'd really encourage you guys to definitely check out The Doctor's Kitchen. It's brilliant.
Cheers,
so is there any influence, Indian influence, Asian influence, like any one kind of trend that we're seeing in some of these recipes and that also have a better health effect, or are you just making things, throwing them together that taste really good?
So I'm really lucky to have been brought up in London, and I'm really lucky to have had a mum that was like a massive foodie growing up. So, during my teenage years and everything else, I'd be eating Asian food, Indian food, like British, modern European, American, slow roast, all that kind of stuff. So I've got loads of different foodie influences, and obviously living in London, we have so many different restaurants. Everything kind of inspires me to cook and make it relatable, culturally relevant for a lot of people. A lot of my patients are from ethnic backgrounds, so like making something Middle Eastern or Turkish or Indian is something that I try and annotate my recipes to, but you can still at the core of it get these real whole ingredients onto people's plates, and that's essentially what I'm passionate about. So all the recipes that you'll see on my YouTube and my Instagram, I've got lots of different influences. One day I'll be doing Korean, one day I'll be doing Indian, one day I'll be doing like, you know, comforting English food. So yeah,
that's brilliant.
Yeah,
we have some turmeric here. Maybe we should hold it and demonstrate. So we're talking about, there's like, you could take a multivitamin supplement, which I personally do, and I think there is a lot of benefit there, but also we're not getting everything from the supplement that we can get from the whole food. So let's talk about
certainly. Yeah, so I mean, like turmeric is quite funny because my mum has been making me turmeric lattes since I was like 12, and now it's become like a trend, like chai turmeric lattes. But you know, in turmeric we have so many different compounds. We've got hundreds of different curcuminoids, wonderful plant chemicals, and it's really the whole food that we need to be looking for. It's very hard to isolate specific compounds that have the desired anti-inflammatory effect or anti-arthritic effect, for example, by taking like one single pill. So that's why I'm encouraging people to use whole ingredients as much as possible, because that's where you get the wealth of complexity of all these different compounds in these sorts of sources. So yeah, it's phenomenal. And turmeric is a very good example of how we've seen kind of swings, right? Like people taking curcumin supplements versus like the whole food. We've been using turmeric in curries for years. And the addition of pepper is very interesting as well. Like, you know, the pepper in and increasing the bioavailability of the curcuminoids and stuff like that. You know, it's just something that's very intuitive for people from an Indian background.
Absolutely. And not only that, but coriander and fennel is another one that you use a lot, I notice as well. But just to pause a little bit on the turmeric root, there is one supplement that actually mixes the essential oils with the curcuminoids, the BCM95. So if people are going to take a curcumin supplement, that's the one I do recommend. Obviously cook with it, food first. But here's one thing about turmeric that I've noticed, and not that it's that big of a deal, but it does stain your teeth and it stains like your countertops, right? So what do you do? Any tips for that?
I wear gloves. Like, so like, I'm lucky to like have access to, you know, non-latex gloves or whatever. So I try and use gloves where possible when I'm handling it. But, you know, just embrace it. I mean, I'm used to having haldi stain. We call it haldi. So haldi is the word for turmeric in Indian, in Hindi. And it's just embrace it. It's part of it. If you look at all my wooden chopping boards, they're all got they're just totally standard yellow. It's a sign that they're being used, right?
Totally, and it's fine. But what I really notice, I wear like a dental appliance at night, you know, because I had braces a long time ago, and that is totally stained orange from the turmeric. And so after we cook with it, I look in the morning, and it comes off eventually. But I'm like, wow. And then I think, okay, I get excited. Like, what is it doing to my microbiome, the diversity, the phytonutrients? I get excited about it, you know. So it's really cool. Let's talk about ghee a little bit. Okay, we're sharing a little story, if you're comfortable, about your uncle and his practice with ghee. I think is really neat.
So it's super interesting. My family have been using ghee for everything, man. We use it for when we make traditional breads, when we make curries, when we do all that kind of stuff. And we've had this practice of making like butter from scratch, because I come from an ancestry that's farming in northern Punjab. So yeah, it's just kind of inbuilt in our culture to always use whole foods like whole ghee and butter and stuff like that. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And with our cows, I mean, they're all grass-fed and they're free range, if you like. So it's something that I always use, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it either.
And so you make a habit of it like 2 days a week to make ghee. I mean, that's just kind of going in your house. Like
I mean, we tend to at home. I don't make it myself. My mum and they all make it at home, but they make it like on a weekly basis. And we have like a big jar of it. It's super easy to make, and I use it for pretty much everything. It's got a wonderful flavor. I can't imagine particularly Indian cooking without using ghee as well. And now that we know more about the use of saturated fats and how it doesn't have a cardio-compromising effect, it's actually something that could be cardioprotective as well. It's something I welcome in moderation.
That's brilliant. Speaking of ghee and butter and fat, you had a really nice piece. We were talking offline about carbohydrates, and we know that a lot of people are are dogmatic about the ketogenic low carb diet,
Yeah.
and you may use that, in some sort of clinical setting, but you yourself, although you're very lean and probably have great blood sugar levels and
Thanks.
low levels of inflammation, you eat carbs periodically and try not to be dogmatic about it. So if you could kind of tell our listeners here what you were telling me offline, I think it was beautiful.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, I think there is certainly a therapeutic approach that encourages something like a low carbohydrate diet, for example. I think we have to be open-minded to the fact that this could be appropriate for certain people. Is it for everyone? No. Is a Mediterranean diet appropriate for some people? Yes, it is. And is it a high carbohydrate appropriate for some people? Probably, yeah, as well. I mean, I come from a lineage that has always traditionally had lots of beans, pulses, and grains in our diets, and that actually is good for some people and not so good for some other people. So I think it's really important about this whole dogmatic approach and actually being welcoming and being open-minded to the fact that we can be wrong about these things. And just really eat intuitively as well. I think that's quite important to get across to people. So yeah, I mean, the kind of food that I make, it may be low carb sometimes. It might have some whole carbohydrate sources as well. So I think I don't really subscribe to a particular approach. I think it really depends on the individual and the patient. And this whole personalized medicine approach is something that I think we should encourage.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, going back to your lineage and so forth, we talk a lot about like intermittent fasting and time restricted feeding and compressing the feeding window. Your ancestors probably don't think twice about this. Your aunts and uncles are living on the farm. Yeah. I'm just personally curious, like, do they eat breakfast, skip breakfast, eat a big dinner with the family? Like,
that's a super interesting question. Breakfast is certainly a staple because, I mean, especially the kind of stories that my dad would tell me would be about him waking up early, milking the cows, and then have his breakfast, and then either go to school or you work on the farms. And if you're going to be working doing manual labor on the farm for that period of time, you're going to need to have an energy source. So skipping breakfast for them, which is probably just not an option, and I don't think it's something that's intuitive to them either. But having meal times within a particular time period, it's just intuitive. You don't eat too late. You don't eat too early either. You just have probably a 10-hour window where you're going to be eating, and plus you're going to be going according to the light as well. So light is going to be very important, particularly back in the day, 60, 70 years ago, in a rural village, you're not going to be having electronic lights either. So you're going to be eating according to the sun. Yeah. And that's just something that's been quite intuitive. When you remove people from that background, whether it be in China or whether it be in South America, and you take into a Western environment where we have constant artificial light sources, we have a different accessibility to food sources and stuff, that's where you begin to see change. And that's why, particularly in this country as well, you'll see there is a preponderance for the Asian population to suffer things like diabetes and maybe not even obesity, but still have diabetes. So it's not all about weight, it's actually about what's going on internally as well. So yeah, it's super interesting. This is one of the theories, but there's so many layers of complexity to that argument as to why people from migrant backgrounds may have preponderance to things like chronic heart or diabetes and heart issues and cholesterol issues and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
But in your opinion, like compressing that feeding window and just listening to your body, if you're going to be active and busy during the day, have a breakfast and then an earlier dinner, does it make sense to eat at midnight and then go to bed at 1 in the morning?
Well, exactly, right? Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of defined eating periods, right? So not eating too late, it means that your blood sugars are going to be more stable, you're more likely to control your insulin spikes, and it doesn't disrupt your circadian rhythms as well. I think late night eating is something that we do a lot of, and people don't understand the actual effects and the cumulative effects of this as well. As a night shift worker, and as someone who witnesses how NHS workers, for example, in this country eat and have accessibility to food, we're just not educated in that kind of thing. And it wasn't until 3-4 years ago that I actually found out about this as well. Mm-hmm. And you can actually kind of draw an association between why NHS workers are much more likely to have cardiac issues or much more likely to have obesity issues. I think there's 1 in 2 workers in the NHS are clinically obese, which is incredible, right? Given that we're the healthcare service and we can't look after ourselves. So yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's finish off. You're doing some training for physicians or for nutritionists as well? Or
So it's actually for health professionals. Okay. So I have this, when I got back from Australia, I was doing emergency medicine out there. I started working for a lottery-funded organisation called Made in Hackney, and they are a community kitchen, beautiful organisation that basically teach the local population how to cook. I started working for them as like a home cook, and then I became an ambassador. And I just had this idea. I would love it if every single general practice, so family physician, surgery, had access to a community kitchen. That's like my long-term goal, to have every surgery affiliated with a kitchen where people can get evidence-based, credible advice from nutritionists, from health coaches, from GPs about healthy eating from all walks of life, whether you're a new parent and you want to learn how to adequately feed your new child, or whether you're a vulnerable adult that doesn't know how to cook or has problems with accessibility of food. And to start that ball rolling, we need to educate our health professionals. So I'm hopefully going to be starting an accredited course that's going to be accredited by the Royal College of GPs to teach doctors nutrition, but teach them how to cook. So in a culinary school environment, this has actually been pioneered by some guys at Tulane Medical School in the US that I'm in close contact with, and we're going to essentially use that model in the UK. So yeah, that'll be the pilot. Hopefully that's going to happen later on this year, and then we're just going to get the ball rolling so people can have like open-minded approaches to other things that are happening, like low carb and the starchy diets and the different types of foods that we need to introduce specific for certain people as well.
Piggybacking off that low carb comment, you know, a lot of people when they go low carb, it's butter, bacon, eggs, sausage. You know, there's no phytonutrients, no vegetable, no fiber. Or if they go paleo, it's like, you know, a bunch of meat products and maybe a sweet potato here and there. So we need to, you know, when we make like these culinary dishes, we're infusing all the spices, which can, you know, offset some of the endocrine disrupting chemicals in the food potentially, and advanced glycation end products and all that. So it's brilliant. So you're going to do some training in France, or you're going to speak that?
So there's a couple of culinary art schools that want me to speak at their events. So one of them is Le Cordon Bleu, another one is some other culinary arts kitchens around London, and a few other foodie events that are happening later on this year, because I believe the future of our healthcare really depends on education, accessibility of food, and the future chefs, the future restaurateurs are really going to be shaping our public health atmosphere, our public health environment in the future. So if they're educated and we can engage with them, we can collaborate with them, I think we can create a healthier nation and a healthier globe. That's my sort of, you know, overarching vision for what I'm doing right now.
Big picture.
Big picture, yeah. So teach doctors how to cook, get the chefs on board, get the public educated about the importance of food and medicine, and really encourage people to look at their plates as positive health interventions. It's nothing that becomes too dogmatic, nothing that becomes too overwhelming, something that we can do every day and annotate to our own lifestyles and preferences, but it literally has the biggest impact. That's my underlying belief behind this whole thing.
Love it, fantastic. So a few final questions. This has been really good, by the way. Love this info. So if there was just one herb, nutrient, botanical that you couldn't live without, you're going to be on a desert island, vitamin D and omega-3s are covered, what are you bringing with you?
That's a really good question. Does it have to be a herb?
It doesn't have to be an herb. It can be ghee butter. It can be meat.
Ghee butter.
A lot of people say turmeric. It can be anything you want.
You know what? I'm going to go with purple sprouting broccoli. Now, the reason why, it's something that we find in the UK. So it's local, it's absolutely delicious. It's one of the most phytonutrient dense crucifers that we have. And crucifers, as I'm sure you know, super important. So if you're faint, all those disease fighting chemicals, it has a plethora of different vitamins, vitamin C, etc. But it tastes great and it's really versatile. Like you can boil it and blend it into hummus. You can just snap it in half and then steam it and then tahini. I mean, I probably don't have tahini on a desert island, but you put that on top as well. And then like, you know, I just blend it into mash and yeah, I would probably say that purple sprouting broccoli,
So it's a full broccoli stem, yeah?
It's like a long, slim sort of thing, and it's purple because it has some anthocyanin content in as well. So you get like a double whammy, and it's great.
Love it already. Good. So forafane, anthocyanin, you get the whole thing.
You get a lot of things.
You don't need to add your blueberries to your broccoli sprouts now. You got it right there.
Exactly,
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, one exercise. You're on the desert island. There's only one exercise: yoga, sprinting, weightlifting.
Yeah.
What is it going to be for you? Squat
jumps, for sure. Yeah. I love it. I mean, if I could add a burpee to that, it'd be amazing. But squat jumps for me are fantastic. Gets your heart rate up. You can just do it anywhere. You don't need weights. If you do have anything to hold, it's great. It's a really versatile sort of exercise that just fires on all muscle types as well. So yeah, I squat jumps for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Your ideal morning routine. We know the morning and is a great way to kind of set the productivity for the day.
Yeah.
What does the first couple hours of your day look like?
So this is interesting actually because over the last few weeks I've been writing my book and everything. So I've had the opportunity to map exactly what my day should be. So wake up 5:45. I down some water. I do my morning routine, like, brush my teeth, all the rest of it. I exercise first thing in the morning. So it's probably about 25, 30 minutes of a HIIT session, or it can be yoga, flow, something like that. Practice my handstands. They're not that good yet, but yeah, practicing, yeah. And then shower. I have something to eat. So it would be something probably high protein and high fat as well. Have a little bit of fiber. And then I would probably meditate. And it doesn't have to be like, guided meditation or anything like that, just some breathing exercise for about 10, 15 minutes. If I can smash those things at the start of my day, I'm set. Like, if I can get that done by 7:30, 8, I'm going to be very productive for the rest of the day. And it just sets my morning, yeah, definitely. And then I can be productive. And then when I get the lull, I can, eat again or meditate one more time, do a few more breathing exercises, and then just carry on.
Yeah, that's so true.
Kind of my morning routine.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah, just doing a little cardio and or yoga and then followed by meditation is key. Like traffic, deadlines, anything, you can breeze right through it. They just don't hit you.
I actually feel tired if I don't exercise in the morning. So when I was training as a general practitioner back in Brighton a few years ago, like if I didn't get my morning exercise regime, I'd be sleepy at like 11 a.m. And so it's, the release of endorphins, the fact that you don't need to come back at 6 p.m. and you're like, oh, I need to exercise, and you need to go to a sweaty gym and everyone's there at the same time. Nah, just get it done in the morning.
Do it in your home.
Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. So final question here. If you were in a lift or an elevator with a parliament member from the UK or a government official from the World Health Organization, they turn to you and say, Dr. Rupy, what's one lifestyle health or nutrition tip you just want me to know to maybe influence some policy around? What would you tell them?
That's a really, really good point. I would probably say phytonutrient density, so making sure people have got colours on their plates, because I know, particularly I've read a couple of studies about how the European population, I'm sure the American population, are micronutrient deficit. So we don't have that micronutrient. We're struggling to get 5 a day, let alone 10 a day, which is the new guidelines that came out recently. But phytonutrient density is probably going to be key. So getting colours into your plate, and also herbs as well, because that is, as we'll find out, a real good source of different phytonutrients that we can have. So phytonutrient density, I think, would probably be on the top of my list.